This is For the Governed, a podcast series brought to you by Athalonz. Here are your hosts, Tim Markison and Ron Cates.
Welcome to another interesting and exciting Athalonz podcast. I'm Ron Cates. Joining me is Tim Markison, the CEO and founder of Athalonz. As you probably know by now, Tim is going to ride his bicycle, pedal his bicycle, across the entire United States, the continent, from San Diego, California to Jacksonville, Florida. Mm-hmm. How did this come about, Tim?
Well, the idea occurred to me early March of this year. As we've talked about before, Athalonz has been active in promoting child abuse prevention. We work with Joe Torre's Safe at Home organization. We donate part of our profits to them. But the idea struck me that I just personally needed to do more than just that to help raise awareness with child abuse prevention. And that's where the idea of a cross-country bike ride came.
So I'm going to get into the detail of the training in a separate podcast.
Right.
But how did it work for you given the challenge of your day? So let me point out, so we started this in March. We are now less than 2 weeks before the ride starts in San Diego. So it's been about 9 months. Obviously, I know what went into the training from a physical standpoint, but from everything else, time management, you are one of the country's top patent attorneys. You are the CEO and founder of Athalonz. You're here at Athalonz 50 hours a week, and your other job 50 hours a week. How do you do this?
Well, it's been quite the challenge, honestly. When the idea occurred to me to do this, I knew there was going to be quite a bit of logistics to put together. Didn't realize exactly how much logistics were going to be required. So it's been kind of a journey, just getting the journey going. But with respect to the training, and again, we'll talk about that later. With respect to the training, in March, April, when the weather here is pretty mild in the Phoenix area, I could do my rides in the afternoon, and then the duration of the rides early in the training were less than they are now.
Let me put that in perspective for a moment for our listeners and our viewers. This is Mesa, Arizona, just outside of Phoenix.
Right.
It's 116 sometimes in the summer. Sometimes it's 120. It's over 100 every day for 90 days straight, for 100 days straight. Right. How did you do this? Did you get up? Did you do it at midnight?
No. So in the early training in the fall, so I set just a kind of a personal guideline. So if the high for the day was going to be above 90, I would ride first thing in the morning. If it was below 90, I would ride in the afternoon. So that was easy to do in March and April and early May. And then it worked into my schedule because I'm much more productive in the morning work-wise than I am as the day wears on. I get a lot so my best time of the day for work is from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., which was a time I was getting up in the spring. And then as the day progresses, emails kick in, phone calls kick in, meetings kick in. So I get a lot less done of my own work from 9 o'clock to the end of the day than I do in those first 4 hours of the day. But once the weather here started to get warmer to the point where it was hot, I started getting up at 4 a.m. so I could start my bike ride by 4:30. So each day I get up at 4. Make a cup of coffee, get my bike clothes on, take care of some personal matters, fill my water bottles, check my bikes, put air in the tire, and then turn on Strava and off I'd go. But just all that, it takes a half hour just to get ready to go for a bike ride.
Great. So you're usually on the road at, say, 4:30.
Yeah. Between 4:30, 4:45 is when I like to get going.
It's dark out.
Yes. Yeah. So I have some really nice bike lights. They work quite well to see, and they have a very nice rear bike light that flashes so you can see for half a mile away. So I actually feel safer in the morning at 4:30 than I did in the afternoon. So it's easier for me to be seen It's easier to see cars because of the headlights. And then at 4:30 in the morning, there's a lot less traffic than there is at 4 in the afternoon.
Right, and the heat's not quite as oppressive.
Yeah. So typically, I mean, we've actually had a nice summer here in Phoenix, where didn't have too many days over 110, and then at 4:30 in the morning, it's in the low 80s. And with it being dark, that's a very, very pleasant temperature to ride in. There was some days where it was in the low 90s already at 4 in the morning, and just sweat a lot more.
Yeah, it's better than 115 though, right?
Oh, absolutely. I've done a few rides in the afternoon when it was 100 degrees with the sun beating down on me, and that's actually where the guideline came, where if it's more than 90, just do it in the morning.
Yeah, that's pretty miserable. Yeah. So I know also there have been times where you've ridden your bike on an indoor trainer.
Right.
The weather was bad or whatever, it ran out of time, and you sat there. When I first started talking to you, I said 30 minutes on the trainer is about all a human can take mentally before you're ready to stab yourself with a spoke or something.
Yeah.
But you've done more than an hour multiple times.
Yeah. I've done a minimum of an hour when I do on the trainer, and then sometimes I'll do 2 hours. And you're right, it is mind numbing. But if I put it in front of a window, the bike in front of the window, so I can look out, then it's just a matter of letting my mind relax and go where it wants to go. And the time passes by fairly quickly, not near as quickly as it does being outdoors. But it hasn't been too bad. But it was important to keep up to the training schedule so I'm as ready as possible when the ride starts.
So you mentioned earlier that your highest productivity time is between 5 and 8 or 5 and 9.
Right.
And now you took this big chunk out of that. How did you adjust?
Not overly well, to be honest. My productivity, especially on the law firm side of things, went down. So it was a little disappointing. So it was really kind of a balancing act. It's not like it went to zero, but I was operating maybe at 80% of where I was prior to that. So
let me say this, folks. 80% of Tim Markison is like 120% of a normal human being. So it's all relative, right?
If you say so.
I say so. I know you won't brag about yourself, and that's fine, but I'll brag for you till you catch up. Now, then you also had to figure out the logistics of this. You don't just say, oh, okay, I'm going to go over to San Diego and start riding east and see what happens.
Right. So made the decision to go from San Diego to Jacksonville was the initial idea. And then started looking on the internet for routes and found the Adventure Cycling Organization. And they actually had plotted a route out from San Diego to St. Augustine, Florida, which is 40 miles south of Jacksonville. So I bought the maps, and there's 7 maps to get you from San Diego to St. Augustine. And it has the topology until you get to like Austin, Texas, because you've got a lot of up and down between San Diego and Austin. But from Austin to the East Coast, it's relatively flat, so they don't have the topology.
Yeah, on that note, tell me about your very first day leaving San Diego. Any climbing there?
Yes. So the first day is it's about 50 miles of riding and elevation change of just under 5,000 feet, going up to an altitude of 3,500 feet. So it's up and down. So if you take the total up, it's almost 5,000 feet.
That's a pretty good sized mountain.
Yes.
You're going to ride your bike up.
Yeah. So
no big deal, right?
It's going to be a challenging first day. And then the second day is a little bit more climbing. But then like the third day, it's a lot of downhill. So, so what I did with the maps from the Adventure Cycling was I looked at my desire of riding 5 to 6 hours a day, and what I estimated my miles per hour would be based on the terrain, and picked places to stop at each, based on those 2 parameters. So mapping that out, it's going to take 40 days to get across the country. So I was able to pick the various towns that we're going to stop in, and then on the maps, they actually have some recommendations for hotels and RV parks to stay in because we are taking an RV as the support vehicle. And then, so I made a list of, okay, I want to stay here for this night, there for that night. So a combination of hotels and RVs. And then gave that list to Beth and Kimberly, my support team. And then they had the hard job of actually making all those reservations. So it took hours and hours of their time over the course of weeks with the correspondence back and forth to get hotels reservations made and RV park reservations made. And then we realized that for the hotel reservations, since we're only bringing an RV, we need a place to park the RV. So they called all the hotels back and said, hey, do you have a place for an RV? And the ones that didn't, well, then they canceled that reservation and found another place that we could stay at that does have a place to park the RV.
So you've got support. I mean, you don't have a humongous support team like most people do on an adventure like this, but you've got a very robust, dedicated support team.
Right. So, like I said, I'm going to be writing, and then we are taking an RV. So I have people that have volunteered to drive the RV and be support as I go across the country. So my son-in-law, Logan Healy, he's taken the first leg from San Diego back here to the Phoenix area. And then from Phoenix to El Paso, it's going to be Jeremiah Johnston and Tim Taylor. They are colleagues and friends of mine. And then from, let's see.
El Paso to Austin?
Yeah, so from El Paso to Austin, Texas, will be my law partner and friend, Bruce Garlick. And then...
Austin to Cottonport, Louisiana.
Yes, thank you. That'll be Beth and Kimberly, my support team. Beth said she's going to do some writing with me, so that'll be nice.
The next volunteer to help is just, I'm floored.
As am I.
Yeah.
So from Cottonport, Louisiana to, help me.
Gaudier, Mississippi.
Thank you. Is Dave Marr, the former PGA player and now broadcaster.
This guy's super famous.
Yes.
He's a world-class golfer. He's a world-class sportscaster. He's proven to be a world-class human being.
Absolutely. So Dave and I met, well, at the same time you met Dave. We were doing a project last spring at the beginning of COVID. We were doing a game called Five Drive. And Dave volunteered to broadcast those games. And we did a charity tournament, double elimination with 8 players, and raised, I think, just under $20,000 for charity through that tournament. And Dave broadcasted every game. And then from there on, we just hit it off. So we've become very, very good friends over the last year.
He's just the best person ever.
He's awesome.
Now, he's actually going to broadcast one of his radio shows on Sirius XM on the road with you. Am I right?
I believe he's going to be doing 2 shows from the road with me. So that's going to be pretty cool. And then his wife Sabrina is coming along.
Yeah, this just gets better and better.
So it's quite an honor for me, for Dave to volunteer and participate this way.
And the last guy is just some guy I've never heard of.
Yeah. So the most famous of them all then is Ron Cates, who'll be doing from getting me all the way from
Gaudier, Mississippi to Jacksonville, Florida.
Yes. So appreciate
I'm excited.
Your stepping up and doing that as well.
That's my home territory.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Florida, so even though not in that part, I certainly know that part fairly well. So before all this, you were riding on a mountain bike every once in a while.
Yeah.
I think you decided early on, which we all decided, that doing it on a mountain bike would not be the easiest way to do this.
Right. Yeah. So I was riding a couple hours a week on my mountain bike. I was also doing some running and some weightlifting. And I had a road bike, but it's probably 15 years old. It was a little heavy, and so I decided that I really needed a new road bike. So went out and bought a new road bike, and the first couple of times out on it, my legs were fine. It was my
seating
area and my neck. My neck was actually bothering me a lot more. And just as a tip, 40 years at a desk is not good training for bicycling. So with that, it was just my neck was aching so badly. And then decided that if I'm going to make this ride, I need to alternate between a regular bike and a recumbent bike. And you helped me do some research. Well, actually, you did all the research, and I just looked at it.
You got the coolest recumbent bike ever.
Yes. So I bought a racing carbon trike. So it's actually 2 small wheels in the front and then the big wheel in the back, and it's a recumbent bike. So the seating area is no longer a problem, nor is my neck. So I can now bounce back and forth between the regular bike and the recumbent bike. And then, excuse me, and then shortly after I bought it, like within weeks after I bought the recumbent bike, I'm like, boy, I'm going 3,000 miles. I'm going to need parts for this because I'm going to have blowouts. I may have a chain break. I may, need to replace the brake pads, things like that. So I called the
It'd be a lot easier just to switch it out.
Well, I called the company and said, hey, I need to order parts. And they says, well, we no longer sell that bike. And
the one you had just purchased.
Yes. And sent me 3 weeks later. And then they said, oh, yeah, the company out of Sweden is now taking over the warranty and parts for this. Well, I've contacted them a dozen times. They've never gotten back to me.
So you probably didn't contact them in Swedish.
I think that may have been the
That's
problem.
the problem.
So I found another recumbent bike to buy, the same exact model. So now I have spare parts.
A backup?
Yeah.
And then you decided maybe just one other piece would be helpful.
Correct. So I was doing some more research, and because I've always liked the feel of a mountain bike, just it feels so stable. And then I was just looking around at bikes, and they have a gravel bike, which is kind of a cross between a mountain bike and a road bike. And it's like, boy, that would be really nice for when it's raining, when the roads are pretty rough. So I bought one of those.
So let's get to the bottom line. You're taking 6 bikes with you.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
And how do those fit in the RV, Tim? Where am I going to sit?
They actually don't fit in the RV. So there's no commercially available bike rack for 2 recumbent bikes. So I'm having one made, and it's almost done. So I can mount the 2 recumbent bikes up like this, and then it's got a hitching post, so I can put a regular bike rack for 4 bikes on that. So I'll be able to keep all 6 bikes on the back of the RV.
So they're never going to go in the RV, or you lock them up at night?
So yeah, I am going to lock them up at night. When we're staying at hotels, they're going to come into the room with us. And then I think it'll be a night-by-night decision when we're camping in the RV what to do with the bikes.
So let's get back to this is an incredible logistics story. So many details, an incredible training story. It's cost you a small fortune. Let's be honest. I know all of this is coming out of your pocket.
Yep.
You're doing it. Why?
Well, as I mentioned a little earlier, I've mentioned this a lot, and if you've watched our podcast and read some of the blogs, you know that I'm a victim of child sexual abuse, and it's presented quite a few challenges in my adult life that I've had to deal with to get to the point where I'm at today, and I've within the last 5 years decided to become a vocal advocate for child abuse prevention, and we were using working with Athalonz to kind of be that platform, but it wasn't going fast enough for me. So I needed to do more to be an advocate for child abuse prevention. So that's where the idea of the bike ride came into play. And it's more than just child abuse prevention. My message really is, if we're going to lower the rate of child abuse, and specifically child sexual abuse, abusers need to stop abusing. And the way that's going to start is they need to heal from the wounds that's caused them to act out and harm others. And not all of them are going to get healed and do this, but to get started, we don't need them all to get healed. If we can get 1% of abusers to stop abusing within a year, and we can do that for 10 consecutive years, then there'll be 175,000 less abusers in the country, which means 2.4 million children will avoid being sexually assaulted in this country.
So there's a lot of publicity around this ride. It's going to raise awareness and raise funds.
Right.
If you want to help, you can go to cycletoendofuse.com and support the ride, support the cause. Thank you.
Thanks.